He flung on her his vast, immortal look, vast, immortal look. Of course, he is immortal, and therefore his look also is going to be immortal. But in that immortality of the look, there is a vastness, brahat, vastness in the context of all the issues of this creation, of what is going to happen tomorrow. All that is encompassed in that one single word, vast look of Narad. His inner gaze surrounded her with his light. Narad is looking at her, but his inner side is embracing Savitri. He is putting a kind of an envelope around her, a protective envelope around Savitri, so that Savitri will be protected against the evil that is soon going to arrive. And his inner gaze surrounded her with his light. Now, because he is talking of inner gaze surrounded her with his light, it means that there is also perhaps something not very happy, something disturbing, some matter of concern is there. Because the fact that he is surrounding her and giving her protection, it means that there is something going to attack her also, you see. And therefore, reining back knowledge. He is holding back all the knowledge. You see. He is holding back all the knowledge, you see, from his immortal lips. You see, we have immortal look, immortal lips. He cried to her, who is this that comes? The bride. That is the spouse we have seen earlier. Who is this that comes? The bride. The flame god. We have seen this in last time. Now, there is a little problem here. Bride means a young woman who is just married or who is about to be, who is about to get married. It means both. Who is about to get married. Betrothal or marriage, bride. Both are involved in the phrase bride. Who is this that comes? The bride. Now, that leaves a degree of ambiguity in this particular stage, in the sense that does Narad think that Satyavan and Savitri have already got married in the Shalva forest? The marriage in priestly wind, all that we have seen earlier, has the marriage already taken place and she has become the bride? Or is Narad going to tell, yes, she has come back now to the palace, she will report it to her parents and she will get married. In other words, she is a bride who is going to get married soon. So both the elements are present in this phrase, the bride, you see, which has happened. Whether the marriage which has taken already place in the Shalva woods or which is about to take place after Savitri reports. Yeah, he is the eternal seer, of course. Yeah. So he is already, yeah. But now here you have to get that thing transcribed on the earthly plane. The transcription is on the earthly plane, you see. Well, we can say that the heavenly marriage has already taken place. The moment they have met each other, finished. So the rest is all your custom, rituals, etc., 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 etc. That is a separate matter altogether. The heavenly marriage has already taken place. So in that sense, she is already a bride, a married girl, you see, in that sense, from that angle. But in the sense of the world as we live here, the marriage is yet to take place. In fact, in the story as we have in the Mahabharata, the book of love does not exist, as I told you earlier. Savitri goes from place to place and one morning, she comes back and she sees her father in the company of sage Narad, and then at that point, she discloses that she has found her lover in the Shalva forest, and then Ashwapati arranges for the traditional marriage, which takes place in the forest. Which takes place in the company of the rishis and the priests and the Vedic chanting and that kind of a thing. It takes place at that point here. Now, why this is important, whether the marriage has taken place in the Shalva woods before Narad's arrival or it is going to take place after that is important in a certain sense, because later on in the same canto he is going to tell that 12 months are given to him and her. This day returning, Satyavan must die. Now this day which day? It is going to be the day from their meeting for the first time in the Shalva woods, or from the day when the marriage will be performed, or the day when he has uttered a sentence. On the day where he has uttered a sentence. Yes, they are all meeting there, and this day returning, Satyavan must die. So that is a little difficult time element to resolve. The world was but their twin self-finding sin, or their own wetted beings vast frame. And then on the high, that is the marriage. That is the marriage. That is the heavenly marriage we are talking of. That is the heavenly marriage. On the high glowing cupola of the day. It is the, as we have said last time, it is that Gandharva kind of marriage which is being described here between the two willing partners to get united. It is that which is described. So here we can say the wedding of the eternal Lord and spouse took place again on earth. Lord and spouse took place again on earth. Now the marriages are arranged in heaven, they get fixed on earth. Now still, whether this is a heavenly marriage or the ritualistic matrimonial contract, so to say, which has taken place here, that is not made clear here. That is kept sort of in suspense. In suspense. But one could argue also that in the story of Vyasa, Savitri, later on, in fact here also we have Savitri has gone to the forest to stay with her husband, and she is counting the moment, the day, the time, the exact occasion when it is going to take place. She is counting even the moment of the marriage. So in other words, there is a fixed moment, Vedam Kalam, as he says here. In Vyasa Savitri, we have got that phrase here, I think, somewhere. He says, time, moment, hour, day, everything is fixed. And Savitri is counting from that point. I would say that it would mean basically the moment when Narad utters the sentence. It is from that point onward, the time, the hour, the moment, the day are to be counted. Are to be counted. So the bride, so this is in that sense a general term, and she is not really wedded in that sense here. Although the heavenly marriage has taken, yes, the souls have met each other, they are identified with each other, they are united with each other, but that is not the marriage on the physical plane yet. And that is what we take later on, you see. Who is this that comes? The bride, the flame born. Well, actually, we had to do a lot of meditation on this issue, how to fix the day and time and the hour and the moment, from which point onward. That needs still some more, because Savit is counting, and on that particular day, on the day of death, yes, the day has arrived, and then when they are walking together in the forest, she says, oh, now, this will happen. He will die soon. To that exactness, she is calculating everything. And that has to be, in my opinion, from the moment Narad utters that sentence, 12 swift-winged months are given to him and her. This day returning, Satyavan must die. This day returning, Satyavan must die. So, from that day onward, when he is uttering, you have to count 12 months and all that thing you see here. And, well, then later on, of course, Narad is already talking very cautiously, reining back knowledge. He is giving a very beautiful description of the whole thing, but he is holding back the knowledge at this moment. He is keeping everybody in suspense. And he says, or half-seen verge of water's moon betrayed, brings thou this glory of enchanted eyes. Your eyes shine with the luster of the moon, with the joy of the moon. Earth has gold-hued expanses, shadowy hills that cow the dreaming phantom heads in night, and guarded in a cloistral joy of moon. Screen banks sink down into felicity. Well, this is the description of that place and all that. You can skip that. And then all these are mysterious presences in which some spirit's immortal bliss is felt. And they betray the earthborn heart of joy. And Narad says, yes, in that beautiful place, in that lovely place, in that enchanting place, you had paused. You had gone to the shallow woods. I have seen it already. You have paused in that place. And it is there you have found something very fascinating. There hast thou paused, and marvelling, born eyes unknown, or heard a voice that forced thy life, the voice that forced life. That was, as we have seen, the courtship speech of Satyavan. As you are making advances towards, it is that voice which forced her life, you see. To strain its rapture through thine listening, your soul was listening to what he was telling you. Or if my thought could trust his shimmering gaze, it would say, thou hast not drunk from an earthly cup. Thou hast not drunk from an earthly cup. Well, as I told you last time, surely, so far you have not drunk from an earthly cup. But sorry, soon you will drink from an earthly cup. You will also see the face of misery of this world, the sorrow of this world. That is what we will experience shortly. Thou hast not drunk so far, but soon it is not going to be so. Now here he says, from an earthly cup. And this is, of course, in the immediate context, refers to the greatness of Satyavan's soul. He is not an earthly cup. You are not drunk from an earthly. He is not an earthly cup. You have met him. It means that he is not an earthly cup. He is a celestial cup, heavenly cup, the divine cup. It is from him you have really drunk the wine of love, the joy of love. Thou hast not drunk from an earthly cup. In fact, as we have seen earlier, we have here 102.57. Rare is the cup fit for love's nectar wine. That is not an earthly cup. Rare is a cup fit for love's nectar wine. As rare the vessel that can hold God's birth. That is the avatarhood of Satyavan. A soul made ready to 1,000 years. It takes 1,000 years for the avatar to take the human form. The body of the avatar is prepared by the presiding deity of the age, the presiding Manu of the age. It is he who prepares the body of the avatar. A soul made ready to 1,000 years is the living mold of a supreme descent. It is in that the supreme descent takes place, you see. So it is that cup, a rare cup fit for love's nectar wine. Thou hast not drunk from an earthly cup. It is that cup from which you are taken. So if you take from that sense, this is a very remarkable comment of Narad, you see. You have made Satyavan, what a wonderful thing has happened in this creation. You have made. That is the but, you see. Yes, it has happened. Now he has to slowly unravel the story also, take the thread forward. But stepping through azure curtain to the morn, thou wert surrounded on a magic world in brighter countries than man's eyes can bear. So this is what is going to happen now soon to Savitri. He is dropping the hint, he is running back the knowledge, and this is the way he is going to disclose what is going to happen slowly. See, the kind of a tension which is built in the entire narrative, that shows the power of the storyteller. Storyteller, see, how Sri Aurobindo is a great narrator of the story, you see. Thou hast not drunk from an earthly cup. In brighter country than man's eyes can bear. Obviously, there in some other worlds, this is how it happened. Assailed with trooping voices of delight and seas, mid the sunlit glamour of the bowl, in fairy wood, let down the gleaming slows of Gandhamadana, where the Apsaras roam. Thy limbs have shared the sports which none has seen, and in Godhorn thy human footsteps strayed, thy mortal bosom quivered with God's speed, and thy soul answered to a word unknown. You don't know what you have answered, what you have spoken. It is your soul who has given the consent, who has answered the call of the love. Your soul has answered the call. You don't know that thing yet. And Narad feels that it is my duty to tell you also what your other thing has not. Your soul, all right, but you have not really heard yet. Human Savitri is not yet aware of other dimensions of the whole event.